Jay. That's strangely close to Daniel Jones from the Giants. Daniel, is that you? Beat the Chiefs. Show me. If the Broncos and Russell Wilson can show me that they can beat the Chiefs, then I will start believing.
And the crowd up. And so are this defense, and Kansas City won't snap the ball again. The Denver Broncos have beaten the Kansas City Chiefs.
David Montgomery on the Lions, former Bear, gonna make this his revenge game for sure. David Montgomery gets the touchdown that ices the game. No! And there's a flag. There's flags. There's flags. There's flags. There's flags. Snap. Hold. Kick.
Denver wins! Denver wins! Let's go!
They open. No!
What happened? Oh shit.
Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the only football podcast. Tonight, we are going to break down the NFL schedule. We're going to talk about some good things and some bad things for each team. And we're just one day closer to NFL football, baby. We are that much fucking closer. And of course, we're going to end it all off with the Chives with Kyle. Let's get it. America is football. Football is
America. If you don't like it, you can kiss your candy ass. For the moment in time, I don't give a damn. Oh my god!
No!
You loved it.
30 to 27.
Oh!
Chiefs win. Chiefs win 30 to 20. Ooh.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Only Football Podcast. My name is Rick, and that's Kyle.
I'm Rick. That's Kyle.
And and it finally happened. It was a little bit different than previous years where we had the NFL being released, the schedule being released on a specific day. The NFL this year was not even letting us know anything until a week before, probably because there's people out there that leak the games. I don't know what kind of monster would do that.
What kind of monster on Wednesday morning would do that on a live stream on YouTube, X, and Twitch? Who would do that, Kyle?
I have no idea. It's nobody I would be friends with. It's no one I would associate with. I mean, there's a lot to break down with the schedule. Cowboys, 49ers, and Jets have 6 primetime games each this season. I know the Houston Texans have a lot, probably 5, if not 6.
Yeah.
So, and then there was 4 teams that have 5. It's the Cardinals, Colts, Titans, and Patriots. The Carolina Panthers were the only team that didn't get a primetime game. Not sure if they deserve one. The Texans have 4 primetime games.
Wait, are you sure they don't have the Panthers don't have one? I thought they had one against the Bears. Oh no, that was last year. Never mind.
Yeah, the Carolina Panthers don't have any. The Broncos, Raiders, Commanders, Vikings, and Jags have 2. The Saints, Bears, Giants, and Chargers have 3. The Steelers, Browns, Texans, Seahawks, Falcons, and Bucks have 4. And then I mentioned who has 6. Look at this list of 5, though. Chiefs, Rams, Bengals, Buffalo, Detroit, Dolphins, Eagles, Ravens, Packers.
Wow.
So we're going to break it all down right now, and I think the best way to do this is to go division by division. So do you want to start with the AFC East?
Yeah, let's do the AFC East. We're going to talk about some good and some bad things, obviously, and break down the schedule. So starting with the AFC East, let's start off with the Miami Dolphins, okay? So let's talk about the good things. And this is all, pros and cons pretty much of the NFL schedule. The Dolphins opened the season for their first 5 games against teams that didn't make the playoffs. So the Dolphins, one of those teams last year that throughout, at the beginning of the season started off hot, were looking good under Mike McDaniel. We're pretty much a perennial playoff team. And then they got to the playoffs, and really towards the end of the season, right? It was like, are the Dolphins actually a playoff team? They have another opportunity this season to start off hot again. Again, with those first 4 games against teams that didn't make the playoff, 3 of them being at home. So again, possibly a hot start. They may go, 3-2, 4-1, something like that for the Dolphins. Kyle, what are you thinking for that good thing for the Dolphins?
I think this is the NFL's way of throwing them a bone after making them start last season on the road for the first 2 weeks. And I didn't realize when I went to the Broncos-Dolphins game. Go ahead, make a joke.
Oh, hold on. I got a tweet, and yep, the Dolphins just scored another touchdown.
All right, and I didn't realize when I was at that game, but everyone was like, "This is our home opener," and I was like, "Wow, it's kind of late for that, don't you think?" So I think this was the way of maybe giving the Dolphins one back for what happened last year. Their strength of schedule is tied for 24th, and I'll say right off the bat in the beginning, I'm not going to talk about strength of schedule too much because it is not accurate at all. I'm going to make my own version like I do every year. They're using wins and losses from last season. So if the Jets won 4 games last season, they're going to consider the Jets, a 4-win team this year. And that's not the case with Aaron Rodgers. There's also about 45-50% roster turnover year to year. So you got to really look at the teams and where they are now. The Bears with Caleb Williams and Rome Odunze and Keenan Allen, like you're not going to take the Bears 7 wins last season and say that the Bears are a 7-win team. You're going to say the Bears are probably a 9-win team at a floor. So I just don't like it. So I'm not going to talk about it a lot, but I'll just, if I do bring it up, just know that this is all we have right now until I make my own. So their strength of schedule is tied for 24th, but it is the easiest schedule in the AFC East. Their biggest test come early, week 2 against the Bills. And then they have who's the other one they're playing week 3? No, it's week I think week 4. They have a difficult game, but I don't have it pulled up right now. But I went through it yesterday and I said, man, that Bills game is going to be tough. And I think the Dolphins are going to be another 10-11 win team. Is Tua going to have what it takes to get him over that hump? I'm not sure, but when I look at this division, the way I see it, it's the Jets, and then it's the Buffalo Bills and Miami fighting for that number 2 spot, and then you're gonna have the Patriots last for sure.
Wow! And real quick, we got Bill in the chat with a super chat. I love it. His New York Rangers hockey team have won. What a ride! He is going bananas. He's also got the Knicks in the playoffs too. So Bill is a very happy guy right now.
And Denver's playing the Timberwolves tonight with a chance to move on to the conference finals. So a lot of good stuff going on right now around the league. As this is the time of year where we're like, actually, it's fun again because when football season first ends and then like baseball's not on. There's no basketball, or basketball just started kind of. It's like not meaningful, but we're in a sweet spot in sports again, and it'll only get better as we get closer to football. But for the Miami Dolphins, I could expect them to be 11-6, 10-5. Expect 10-7. Expect Tua to throw for 4,000 yards again, and if it's cold, expect the Dolphins to maybe be in their last year with Tua. I don't know if they're going to. I mean, he was so awful in the playoff game against the Chiefs, and Mike McDaniel wasn't great either. But this is a team that is going to be good again. It's kind of like the Cowboys. They're going to be good again, but ultimately, is it going to be enough? That remains to be seen.
And speaking of the cold, there is a 47-day span where they'll only play one home game. And that's going to come between weeks 5 and 10. So that is getting deeper into the season. And then not only that, but they have to close out the season with 2 games on the road in New York and Cleveland, 2 cities that get cold as shit in December and January. So you talk about, less than 40 degrees or whatever for the Dolphins. I mean, below 50 is probably where they start playing like real dog shit. To end your season there, it's going to be rough. It's going to be rough for them. So, you mentioned the weather to close out they have a great opening of the season, but to close it out is going to be rough again. And that question is going to be continuous throughout the season, whether or not they can play in cold weather cities or not.
Yeah. It's going to be the narrative, and they're going to wear T-shirts that say, something. I like the cold. Tyreek Hill is going to run out without a shirt on.
Mm-hmm.
But when the ball is snapped, we'll see what happens. Looking at
Every
the
time.
Patriots,
Mm-hmm.
I look at the Patriots and I go, yikes! What a way to start the new era for the Patriots. Gerard Mayo and likely Drake May. They're going to make their debut against the Cincinnati Bengals of all teams. You can expect that to be a very difficult game right off the bat. They're not primetime darlings anymore. They only have one primetime game week 3 against the Jets. And then they play the Jags in London week 7. But the Patriots will get to see up and close the model of a very effective rebuild week 6 when the Texans visit. Every team that's drafted a quarterback this year hopes for a CJ Stroud-like impact.
Yeah.
And that will be a good measuring stick game for them to see where they're at, because honestly, the Texans are probably my Super Bowl favorite at this point right now.
Wow. I like that. He's going bold. I love it. Yeah. And one good thing for the Patriots too, they won't necessarily play a road game either in October. They have a neutral site one in London, but they pretty much got all 3 of them at home. The shitty thing is, again, they have a brand new quarterback, right? And like you said, they're hoping for that same CJ Stroud effect. Gerard Mayo's already said, hey, there's a lot of work that Drake May has got to do. They're also 1-8 at home, at least from last year. So it depends, what they've done with the team this year. We're going to kind of break that down later on this offseason. But you hope that their home stadium becomes a positive, when we're talking about this next season with Drake May. But as it stands now in October, kind of early in the season, no real actual road games. I mean, they do have to travel to London, like I said, which I think is a pain in the ass for anybody, but
right.
Not bad for the month of October.
Yeah, not at all. And then my favorite team to come out of this is the Jets. And I know Greeny that works for ESPN was livid when we found out that the Jets week 1 were going to go to San Francisco or Santa Clara and play the 49ers. And you think the schedule makers might have been a little afraid to do that after his 4-snap season last year. But no, they're going to return him onto the field in a huge game against the NFC champions and Nick Bosa-led pass rush. I mean, they're going to have their work cut out for them early. I think even without Bill Belichick, the Jets-Patriots rivalry still has a little juice. Their first meeting is in week 3 on primetime. So there'll be a national audience for that one. And then we'll see what Drake May is. I mean, right now he's the answer to the post-Tom Brady era. And I think for the Patriots, it's going to be a rough year. But for the Jets, who we're talking about right now, I think a lot of people are saying, oh, the Jets have to play the 49ers. That's tough. I think what you have to remember is if you're a 49ers fan, you have to play the Jets. It's not that the Jets have to play you. And I know that they haven't proven anything, and Aaron Rodgers hasn't thrown for 300 yards in like 600 days or some crazy stat like that.
Yeah.
But this team is so much better than they were last year. And the expectations last year was Super Bowl. So, I mean, and now with all of the additions, the drafting, and this is just such a monster team right now. Adding Mike Williams, if he can stay healthy, I just think it's going to be a very tough team. And Aaron Rodgers has that ego. He's going to want to go out there.
Absolutely.
He wants to win MVP. He wants to win a Super Bowl. And I think you're going to see some of his best football with him being so fresh, sitting out all of last year. Yeah, with an injury, but he's not getting that wear and tear that you're used to. I just saw him on a podcast, and he looks just like normal Aaron Rodgers. I think he's going to go out there, and I think he's going to be all right. And I think the Jets are going to be tough.
Oh, okay. I like that. I do have to disagree because I do think it's more the Jets have to play the San Francisco 49ers, especially with that defense, right? I don't know or at least I don't believe that they had too many subtractions from that defense. I still think it's going to be a really good game. And I know Jets fans are like, Monday Night Football again, you fucks, like, come on. But it's funny because the Jets heavy early prime time schedule, there was a comment from an executive, Mike North, the NFL's vice president of broadcast planning. He said, yeah, it's an awful lot of primetime games early in the season, but obviously I feel like the Jets kind of owe us one, which, I mean, it sucks because Aaron Rodgers did go down in 4 plays. That absolutely sucks because you were expecting an awesome storyline with Aaron Rodgers being on the Jets, him coming out with the flag and an entire season of possibly the Jets finally getting that quarterback. So yes, he's right in that aspect, but also like, what do you want him to do, dude? You want him to not fucking tear his Achilles on the 4th play of the game?
Right.
Like, so, but yeah, I think Monday Night Football against the San Francisco 49ers is still going to be a tough one for them. But again, you bring in Mike Williams, you still have a really solid defense with the Jets led by Quinnen Williams there, Sauce Gardner. The Jets are getting better. They improved. So hopefully that Monday Night Football game is it goes a little bit better for Jets and Jets fans.
Yeah, and for a couple of these teams, there's going to be a stretch. I might not bring it up for every team, but there's a couple that I have written down that are just very, very brutal schedules. And I think for the Jets, you got this streak here at the end where they play the Dolphins, then at Jacksonville, then the Rams, then Buffalo, and then Miami again. I think those are going to be tough games, but I think the Jets, they're going to live up to some of the hype. I don't know if they're going to be, 13-4, but I do think they're going to be winning most of their football games. So
yeah, and it's tough because playoff contention right there at the end of the season, those games matter a lot. And speaking of the playoffs, those last few games, the Buffalo Bills were definitely on their A game last year because they won the division. They were able to host a playoff game, and their schedule. Let's talk about one of the good things for the Bills. They get to face the Patriots twice over the final 3 weeks, which is a team that usually, at least with Tom Brady was there, was not someone they could beat, but have recently gone on a 5-1 winning streak. Well, not winning streak, but their record is 5-1 against the Jets. So again, talking about what type of games, especially at the end of the season, that can get you into the playoffs, that's one of the things for the Bills.
Yeah, and the Bills also have a stretch where they play the 49ers, Rams, Detroit, and then they get to play New England twice in the last 3 weeks, but the Jets is in the middle of those 2 New England games. And so I think it kind of balances out a little bit. And then before they play San Francisco, they have a bye week, but before the bye week, they play the Chiefs. So it's going to be tough. And keep in mind right now, every team is healthy. Every team is put together. It's hard to find a weak team at this point in the year because on paper, everything looks pretty good. So we're going to say, oh, that's tough. But we'll see what these teams look like by this time of the year. So luckily for Buffalo, this stretch is coming towards the end. But really quick, they got Arizona. That's a weird game. And I will say what was really strange is that there was only 3 teams that have a divisional matchup week 1. And it used to be week 1 and week 18 or 17 back before the 18th game. But it used to be you play about 80% as divisional matchups. And this year you go down the list and you have all of these out of conference unique matchups week 1 that we're not used to. Buffalo's going to play Arizona, Miami and Jacksonville, Cincinnati and New England, San Francisco and the Jets. None of these are, in division games. And that is a unique thing that the NFL hasn't done in my whole lifetime. So I'm kind of excited to see, what week 1 looks like, because it's going to be a lot different than what we're used to.
100%. Let's move on now to the AFC North, and let's talk about Kyle's favorite team. Kyle, let's talk about the Baltimore Ravens. They are starting the season week 1 against the Kansas City Chiefs, the Super Bowl champions, on Thursday, September 5th. So that's going to be a tough game at the very beginning because that is the AFC championship game rematch. So that's going to be tough for them. But they have a week 14 bye, which, I mean, it depends, right? How your team's doing at that point in time, but you kind of like that late bye week because maybe, hey, you need a couple weeks for, I don't know, a defensive player, an offensive player to rest up and get healthy because maybe he's dealing with like some nagging injury or something like that. He's hurt a little bit. So I think in this case, it's going to be good for the Ravens to have that week 14 bye, which I think is tied for the latest bye week this season for any NFL team. But starting off against the Chiefs is always rough.
Yeah, and I think one of the hardest stretches that any team is facing is the Pittsburgh Steelers, and we'll get to that in a little bit. For Baltimore, like they're going to be really good. They got Derrick Henry now. They're loaded up. They have to play Kansas City week 1, so that's an AFC championship rematch. Expect Baltimore to win the game. I mean, how many times have we seen this where the NFL remember when Denver and Baltimore played and Joe Flacco had the Hail Mary? They made week 1.
Yeah.
Denver and Denver smoked the Ravens. So normally the team that is seeking revenge has, they've been working out all offseason knowing that they're going to play you week 1 and they're going to want this game really bad. And they do have to go to Arrowhead, but what a freaking game that's going to be.
Oh yeah.
That's going to be a lot of fun to watch. And they're not my favorite team. So you lied about that.
What do you mean, dude? You're always like, the Ravens, I love them so much. I thought.
No, never.
No.
Never.
Oh, okay. I thought so. All right.
They do. The Ravens are never on the road for more than 2 weeks in a row. So I think that is kind of unique to a lot of the teams. So it's a very balanced schedule. Not a ton of home games in a row, not a ton of away games on the road. Pick your poison of what you like, but some people say balance is beautiful. So the Ravens do have that going for them.
Yeah. Now let's move on to the Bengals. One good thing for the Bengals, after a pretty disappointing year last year, and obviously, Joe Burrow got injured pretty much twice, right? He kind of played through an injury, and then finally they were like, hey, okay, you got to stop, right? Because you are a franchise quarterback. You have been to the Super Bowl. You need to chill out. So a pretty disappointing season, but to start off, they've got games against the Patriots, Commanders, and Panthers in September, all with new head coaches. Bryce Young obviously being a second-year quarterback, but the Patriots and Commanders having rookie quarterbacks. So they can get off to a hot start. They just talked to, I forget the name of the linebacker that was asking for a new deal. He said, I want to stay in Cincinnati. So that's a positive thing. Obviously having Joe Burrow back, the T. Higgins situation does kind of, I don't know, it's up in the air right now, but it looks like for all intents and purposes that he is staying. Obviously you got Jamar Chase, and again, Joe Burrow just being back, they can get off to a hot start in September, which is not something they did last year and which really crippled them down the road when Joe Burrow got hurt. So for me, I mean, that's a good thing for the Bengals to start it off.
Yeah, and as long as Joe Burrow's on that team, they're going to be in the spotlight. They have 5 primetime games this year. The other thing I'll say is the Bengals have a tendency of starting slow, right? That's not uncommon for the Bengals to be 1-3 by week 4. And I wonder if that went into the equation of the schedule writers to give them a little more easy games, to try to, I don't know, help them out a little bit. Because honestly, when you have a franchise quarterback like Joe Burrow, it's to get the most money and value out of the games on primetime, the Bengals have to be competitive and good. Yeah. So I think the NFL, they knew what they were doing when they waited, to put them on primetime. Not Kansas City's not going to be on primetime. New England's not going to be on primetime. Monday Night Football against the Commanders, that's another softball. Yeah. And then they got the Giants on Sunday Night Football. So by the time that game ends, then the schedule starts to get a little tough. They'll play Baltimore for the first time. But I do think, like you said, they're going to be on. They're going to, I guess, receive the gift well. This is going to work out for Cincinnati. I think this year is going to be a little different, and because of the schedule and the way it's lined up. In past years, it's been really tough right off the gate for the Bengals, and this year it's a little different. Joe Burrow's coming back from an injury. He's lucky that he gets to play, the Commanders, Panthers, and Patriots in the first. I mean, I would be shocked if they're not 3-1, by week 5, unless they're 4-0.
And I'm sure that is like you saying that is like music to Bengals fans' ears, because they're like, we don't want to start off slow anymore. We want to get back to the Super Bowl. We want Joe Burrow to be the guy this year again, like he has been. And hopefully that is true for the Bengals, because like you said, it's awesome when Joe Burrow and the Bengals are good. Moving on to the Pittsburgh Steelers.
I got something.
So the Steelers get to start off the season playing 3 straight games against teams that all finish under 500. The Broncos, unfortunately, Kyle, one of them, the Falcons and the Chargers as well. So the Steelers, working with Russ, working with Fields right now, they want to get off to a good start. Kyle's just like, fuck you, I'm out. They want to get off to a good start, and because they want to look as good as possible in that first month, those first few games. But you had something about the Steelers. What do you got?
I got the most brutal schedule maybe ever. I want you to hear how this ends. So they played the Giants. Okay. You could say that that's not a super tough game. Then they hit the bye week, and then they come out and play Washington. And you're like, well, those are very manageable games. Okay. That Washington game happens week 10. From week 10 to the rest of the year, every opponent, you could argue, is going to be better. Baltimore, Cleveland, Bengals, Browns, Eagles, Baltimore. And then you're like, okay, well, there's got to be a softball in here somewhere. Nope. They play the Chiefs on Christmas. It's like, okay, well, do they at least end? No, they end with the Bengals. Like, this is so brutal of a schedule. And that is a big reason why I think it's going to be Justin Fields that is going to be starting at some point this year, because I know Russell Wilson, and I hope he does succeed, but I don't know. Like, we saw what we saw. I don't know if Mike Tomlin, has a different philosophy that's going to work. Obviously, with the draft picks, they beefed up the O-line. They're going to try to run the football and really limit Russell Wilson and just kind of do what Pete Carroll did. That might actually work out for Russ, and the Pittsburgh Steelers could end up being a really tough team, but we'll have to wait and see. I thought the Broncos were going to play the Steelers week 1. I was really adamant about that because I knew the schedule writers said, to get the most juice out of this game, we need to make sure Russell Wilson is returning to Denver, not Justin Fields. And I thought that might happen week 1. Instead, they put it at week 2. So, I think they were thinking the same thing. And I think that game should be primetime. I think if Denver had one primetime game, it should be that game. That game should be the one that all eyes are on. There's nothing like a revenge story, and we'll get into more of that when we talk about the Broncos, but the Steelers have their work cut out for them.
They do.
The scheduling gods applied pressure when they put this together, and they're going to have to earn it on the road. The Steelers are going to have a lot of tough road games, whether it's Kirk Cousins, Falcons, or, I could go down the list, the Chargers. I think the Colts are going to be a good team, the Baltimore, Bengals, Browns, Eagles, Bengals. All on the road. Well, the Bengals, the last one's at home, but still, they're going to have to be old Pittsburgh Steelers. They're going to have to, because remember, I remember in 2005 in the AFC Championship, Denver played Pittsburgh, and they asked Pittsburgh, what was it like going on the road to that game? And they said, that it's part of our identity. Like, we're the underdog. We want to win in your house. So I think Pittsburgh's going to have to embrace that old mentality. I do think this is the best offensive line that they've had since 2012. So, I mean, the pieces are all there for them to kind of go back to that old school way of football. Like when you think Pittsburgh, Pittsburgh and Baltimore, you're thinking, okay, we're going to get an old school Pittsburgh-Baltimore game with Derrick Henry, and it's going to be a very physical division. And I think that kind of plays into what the Steelers are going to do well. Is Russell Wilson going to be able to, make that dream come true? We'll see.
Yeah, and we say this all the time because, I mean, Kyle and I have watched a ton of NFL football over our lives. When you play your division opponent, it's a different animal. It's a different game entirely. It isn't you going up against a AFC or NFC team from a completely different division. It is your brother that you are going up against. So they are always playing tough. So while it may seem like a gauntlet for the Steelers, like Kyle said, it is going to be one of those old school rock'em sock'em type of games, with the defenses hitting hard and those offenses hopefully being a lot better than last year. And, again, speaking about one of their division opponents, the Cleveland Browns, they're going to have a very tough, December, pretty much end of the season, because they might end up having another tough stretch, just like the Pittsburgh Steelers. They're going to close the season with the Steelers, the Chiefs, the Bengals, the Dolphins, and the Ravens. Again, all those, most of those games are AFC North games, but still, it's going to be tough because the Cleveland Browns were 8-1 at home last season, and 3 of those are away. And if that's how you got to end the season, you kind of hope for more of that magic that they saw last year to get themselves into a wild card spot.
Yeah, and Cleveland too, you'll see on their schedule, like Cleveland has a lot of road games. Like they might as well just keep their bags packed. I mean, they're gonna, where is it? Week 12, I believe, is when it starts, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, right around there.
Yeah, so they have a lot of road games coming up, and Cleveland's another one of those teams. Like this whole division travels well on the road in my eyes. And you're right. Like a lot of these games are so tough because they're divisional games. And it's another year of wondering who's going to make it out of the AFC North in a very tough division. Healthy Joe Burrow, a Steelers team that's going to be good under Mike Tomlin, the Ravens, beefing up their run game, and Cleveland getting Deshaun Watson back. I mean, this is the best division in football.
Ooh, Kyle's already calling it. I love it. All right, let's move on to the next division. We're going to talk about the AFC South, and we're going to start off with Ginger's Indianapolis Colts. They're getting Anthony Richardson back. They've got Steichen there as their head coach. They signed Pittman to a deal. Over the final 6 weeks of the season for the Colts, they get to play 5 teams that didn't make the playoffs last year: the Patriots, the Broncos, the Titans, the Giants, and the Jaguars. So they're good. They're looking like a very good back end of the schedule for them. What matters for them is like what happens to Anthony Richardson, obviously, right? Because you don't want that injury-prone title on your quarterback that you spent a first-round pick on 2 years ago to continue. And, you had a pretty good offense with Gardner Minshew, and you have Joe Flacco as a backup, and you saw what he was doing in Cleveland last year. So even if Anthony Richardson does go down, which we're hoping he doesn't, you at least you have a pretty good backup, but you have to start off the season well if you're the Colts, because you've got the Texans and you've also got the Jags there that are going to be very, very competitive. So you're hoping for a good start.
Yeah, and it's not going to be easy. I mean, you could make an argument that the Bears are, one of the easier opponents, but they're not going to be easy. You go week 1 through 5, Houston, Packers. Those are 2 teams that are better right now probably than the Colts, then the Bears, then the Steelers, then Jacksonville. If the Colts aren't careful, they could end up getting a little bit behind to start off the season. And the Anthony Richardson, CJ Stroud rivalry we're going to finally get to see it. And everybody's saying that Anthony Richardson's way ahead of where he was last year, another year in the system, studying the playbook, a full year under his belt, even though he was hurt. You're still in the building, you're still in the meetings and all that. So this is going to be an awesome game, in my opinion, right off the bat. This is one of the few divisional games we get week 1. So I'm pumped for it.
Cannot wait for, oh God, I just cannot wait for week 1. Moving on to another team with a second-year quarterback, the Tennessee Titans. Starting in week 9, the Titans get to face the Patriots, Chargers, and Vikings. So they get to see J.J. McCarthy, Drake May over that 3-game span. They also have games against the Bears and the Commanders, which means they're probably going to see all 4 of the rookie quarterbacks, and they're going to be able to, kind of size them up. And hopefully, not the Bears, but hopefully those are easy games for the Titans, because the improvements they've made, getting Calvin Ridley, still having DeAndre, oh my God. Why can't I remember his name? DeAndre Hopkins. Yes.
Yeah.
Getting Joe Alt in the draft. You're hoping that this now becomes a competitive team. But again, they're in the AFC South with the Texans and the Jaguars, and really to an extent the Colts. So this is going to be another tough division, but at least they have some games with rookie quarterbacks that they can hopefully try to take advantage of, and also seeing if Levis is that guy for them. The bad things, their final 5 games, though, are all against opponents that finished above 500, which, again, strength of schedule does not necessarily matter. But again, that's still something to look at.
Yeah, and they're going to, Levis, I think his rookie season went a little bit better than most people thought. And you remember, I think he made his debut on Monday Night Football, and they upset the Miami Dolphins. We were calling that game. And so no surprise that the NFL is giving Tennessee, Miami the Monday Night Football treatment again. But you look at the quarterbacks, we're going to have plenty of games to kind of measure Will Levis. There's matchups against Caleb Williams, Jordan Love, Tua, Anthony Richardson, Drake May, CJ Stroud, JJ McCarthy, Jaden Daniels. This is going to be a lot of young football quarterbacks playing each other, and I think that makes for kind of almost must-see TV. And I think that's really hard to do when, like you said, Tennessee is not really expected to be the best team. If anything, they're expected to be the worst team in this division, and they still found a way to make a lot of their games exciting.
Yeah, and if you're a Tennessee Titans fan, which I'm sure you're familiar with a few of them there, I would say they're hopeful, right? Like you said, the Levis rookie year was a lot better than most people expected, and really sometimes a lot better than what rookies get their first year, unless you're CJ Stroud, right? But I'm sure they're very, very hopeful for this season coming up. Moving on to the Texans. The Texans, Kyle's Super Bowl favorite team. He's already thinking they're going to win the South. That's it. They're winning the AFC South, right? And they have a good schedule to start off. They got the Colts, the Bears, and the Vikings. Now, that's not to say, right, that the Colts can't upset them in week 1 with Anthony Richardson and that team and the improvements. But the Texans, looking at that and what they did last season and what they've added this offseason, you can make a case that this can be a 3-0 team by week 4. And yes, that's them beating the Bears on primetime. I get it. Sunday Night Football, I know. But they have a very favorable schedule. And again, if they can just continue to play like they did last season with CJ Stroud throwing for 300 plus yards and 3 touchdowns every game, like I said, it wouldn't be surprising if they start the season undefeated, at least the first 3 weeks.
Who did the Bears draft last year with the – well, no. That's not what I meant to say. The Bears had the number 1 overall pick last year, and they traded it with the Panthers. And
correct.
I know that they got a haul of shit, and when you look at it, you're like, the Bears obviously won the trade. But in my opinion, in order for the Bears to have won that trade, this might be a little bit of an exaggeration, but we're sports media. This is what we do. In my opinion, for the Bears to really put a bow on winning that trade, they need to beat the Texans week 2, because CJ Stroud could have been their draft pick. And you can't go back and say woulda, shoulda, coulda, but it's true. Just like you guys know that you could have drafted Mahomes instead of Trubisky. This was another quarterback that was available
Yeah.
that is one of the best in the league immediately. You just drafted somebody with even more hype than CJ Stroud had. But
Mhm.
what's going to happen when they play each other? And that's going to
Mhm.
be, to me, a must-watch game. And I'm glad that it's on Sunday Night Football. But yeah, Houston, they're going to
Mhm.
be amazing to watch, man. Their turnaround last year was incredible. I expect them to kind of keep going where they left off. CJ Stroud is going to have his challenges this year. They're playing a lot of NFL's top 10 defenses from last year: the Bills, Pats, Jets, Cowboys, Dolphins. So CJ Stroud's going to have his work cut out for him, but this guy's
Mhm.
ready. He's born for this moment. And when they added Stephon Diggs, it was just kind of like, all right, that's enough. You guys
What
need
the
to knock
hell?
it. You're not allowed to have those three. You could say the Bears have the best receiving core, but you could also argue it's the Texans. I mean, you could go back and
Absolutely.
forth. So, yeah, and that's cool because when the Texans and Bears play each other, it just adds another dynamic of that competition. It's not just Caleb
Mhm.
Williams and CJ Stroud; it's the receiver cores as well going against each
Mhm.
other. So, yeah,
Yeah.
dude, I'm super pumped. I look at their schedule though, and I'm like, they can win that game. They can win that game. They do have a stretch where they play the Jets, Lions, and Cowboys all in a
Mhm.
row, and they
Mhm.
do finish the season. 3 of their last 4 games are Dolphins, Chiefs, and Ravens. Um, I thought maybe that Ravens game was going to be a little further up the schedule, but that's going to
Mhm.
be an important game in a moment where I'm sure the Ravens and Texans are battling out for the number 1 seed, and
Yeah.
then they play, week
Mhm.
17, and I bet there's going to be a ton on the line when that game kicks off. I mean, mark this down: Thursday, May 16th, when that game happens on week 17, it's going to
Mhm.
matter a lot.
Oh shit. Mark it down right now.
I
Mark
said
it.
mark it down.
And not only, right, like, do they play those 3 teams, the Dolphins, Chiefs, and Ravens? They have to play those 3 games in a matter of 10 days. 10 days from the 15th till the 25th. Christmas against the Chiefs, I believe. They are playing those 3 games. So talk about a gauntlet of games, right, for the Houston Texans.
Yeah.
So that's going to be tough. Last but not least, in the AFC South, we're talking about the Jacksonville Jaguars. Oh, we're talking about Duval, baby. We're talking about Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars. Again, a disappointing season last year. Trevor Lawrence did go down for a couple games because of an injury.
He was faking it.
What's that?
He was faking it. You didn't
He was
hear?
he was faking it. You're right. You're right. He was faking it.
Dude, that was an all-time collapse. I think they lost their last 5 games to miss the playoffs.
Yeah, it was bad. It was so bad. But they're hoping to turn their fortune because, again, they've got 2 straight games in London. Last season they were 2-0, and I mean that worked out for them. So it's probably going to work out for them again. One of them being up against the Bears. But 3 of their first. Sorry, go
Can
ahead.
I just say real quick about London? I think
Yeah.
one of the reasons it's going to work out for them so well is because they're staying in London. New England is going to have to travel to London
Mhm.
while the Jags are going to be acclimated and it's going to be a regular week. So
Mhm.
that because you're going back to back, you get what I'm saying? Like the Patriots aren't in London for 14 days. The Jaguars are. So that's a
Yeah.
huge advantage that's like 7 to 10 point advantage in my opinion against the
Mhm.
Patriots team that they don't need a 7 to 10 point advantage. Like
Yeah.
that's definitely a win.
And the Jags are used to it already. I mean, they've played in London almost every season that there's been a London game. So they're getting used to it a little bit better. Obviously, Trevor Lawrence and this team is kind of new, but after last season, they're like, okay, we know how we got to go about it. Like Kyle and I were in the Navy. When we were going on deployment and we were doing this, we knew how to go about it. We knew when to get sleep, when to not get sleep, when to stay up. So it is going to be something for everybody to look out for, especially the Patriots and the Bears. The shitty thing for the Jaguars, though, because they're going to have to start off as hot as possible because they have the Dolphins, the Browns, the Bills, and the Texans the first 4 weeks of the season, and 3 of those games are on the road. So they're going to have to come out swinging for the Jags to start off the season hot.
Yeah, and I think Jacksonville's really going to bounce back. I do. I don't think I don't think Trevor Lawrence. You could tell he was playing with injuries, and part of
Mhm.
that collapse was because he didn't play a couple games. You saw him like roll that ankle; it looked awful.
Yeah,
The fact that he was even playing late in the season, I was like, how is he out there? I thought it was
he
much
wanted.
worse.
I was gonna say
Yeah,
he wanted that playoff push.
he did, and there's a couple quarterbacks that played hurt last season, and
Mhm,
we could tell.
mhm.
Jalen Hurts, I mean, there's a list of them. So now that they're healthy, I'm expecting Jacksonville to bounce back and compete with Houston for the number 1 spot.
There we go. Here we go. It's going to be a head-to-head. All right, let's move on to Kyle's division, the AFC West. And Kyle, do you want to start off with the Broncos? Do you want to do them last? How you want to go about it?
Okay, I'll start off with the Broncos saying, you know how I said we have new ways of hitting rock bottom?
Oh
And,
no.
and every year we get a new opportunity.
Yeah.
When Russell Wilson when we took Russell Wilson from Seattle, we made an enemy with Seattle. And I
Yeah.
was at that game week 1, and it was like Seattle and Denver. The rivalry became real. They used to be in a division together, so there's already that history.
Mhm.
Then what happened with Nathaniel Hackett getting shipped to the Jets? That became worst coaching job in the history of the NFL.
Yeah.
That happened, and then Russell Wilson getting pushed out to the Steelers happened. When I
Yeah.
tell you that 3 of our first 4 games, if we lose, it is going to be terrible. You got Seattle and
Yeah.
Pittsburgh and the Jets in the first 4 weeks of the season.
Mhm.
So some people wanted the Steelers game week 1. I was one of them. And then I heard
Mhm.
people say, why would you do that to Bo Nix? Week 1 against TJ Watt. But yeah, I looked at the schedule and the games that really pop off, of course, the Steelers game, the
Mhm.
Saints game on Thursday night, Sean Payton returning to New Orleans to take on his former team. That's going to be a
Yeah.
lot of fun. And really the last 2 games or last 3 games, Chargers, Bengals, and Chiefs, those aren't easy by any means, but
Mhm.
there's also, I would say Denver might be on the easier side in that. I'm saying that's a really hard schedule, but a lot of them are even more difficult, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think for the Broncos, Sean Payton, he got his guy in Bo Nix. Bo Nix does a lot of like scat, which is just about getting the ball out of his hands quick. Can this work out? We're going to find out early in the season, but this is huge for Sean Payton when you see Bill Belichick get phased out of the NFL. You see these
Mhm.
older coaches being phased out. Sean
Mhm.
Payton's not like them. He's an innovator. He comes up with new plays, and this is kind of his year to prove that. Look, last year that was not my team. I got
Yeah.
called here to fix it, and
Yep.
I'm in the process of that right now. But you have made a lot of bad decisions, and it's not going to just be all better in 1 week. So now Sean gets rid of a ton of players. He brings in his own players, including the most important player, a quarterback, and we'll see what can happen. Pittsburgh, Tampa, the Jets, Seattle, not like crazy hard, but it's definitely each game is going to present a challenge, and they're going to have to take it one game at a time. And hopefully we can get to like a 3-1 start.
Yeah. Yeah. And 2 in October. You guys play the Raiders, the Chargers, the Saints, and the Panthers. 2 of them being division foes, so they're not going to be like easy games, by any means. Hopefully they are, but the Saints and the Panthers, all these teams missed the playoffs. The Saints obviously being Payton's former team, but that's not a bad October schedule, right? That is not a bad October schedule because if you can get off hot in September, those October games, teams that didn't make the playoffs last year, hopefully though, you could come out at least 3-1. I mean, if you sweep October, even better. The only shitty thing is when you guys play the Chiefs, you guys go week 9, play the Ravens, week 10, play the Chiefs, week 17, play the Bengals, week 18, play the Chiefs. So back to back tough Chief games after 2 very physical AFC contender type of
And the
teams
last
in the
bye.
Bengals. And what's that?
They have the last bye week, week 14 bye.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
I guess I don't know if that's good or bad. I don't think
Mhm.
it's good. I mean, you don't want to be the first team with the bye or the last team. You want to be around week
Oh, okay.
9,
Okay.
right? Week 9, week 10. That's a solid place to have a bye. Even week 7, like the Bears. You just when you're in week 14, it's like your guys obviously need a break, but it's kind
Mhm.
of overdue at that point.
I was gonna say because it can be good or bad depending on how the team's feeling and what's going on with the team. You're right. All right. So the Broncos, we got them. Let's move on to the reigning Super Bowl champions, the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs have a tough one too, right? They also have to play a 3-game stretch in 10 days, just like the Houston Texans. On December 15th, they play the Browns, the Texans, and the Steelers. Starting that on that 15th of December. Talking through burps. I'm so fucking old.
Wait a minute. You said 3 games in 10 days? How is that
Yep.
possible?
Yeah. So December 5th, just like the Texans, December 15th, um, it'll be the Browns, the Texans, and the Steelers. And let me actually get the exact
I think it's 3 games in 14 days.
let's see. So week 15, Thursday. No, hold on. Where are the Chiefs? Where are the Chiefs?
Because
Kansas City Chiefs.
even if you have a Thursday game and a Sunday game, that would be 4. Yeah, that would still be 14 days.
So let's see here. Sunday, December 15th, the Chiefs at the Browns. And then December 21st, which is 6 days later, they are at home against the Texans. And then
Oh,
on
I see what you're saying.
December 25th, just 4 days later, they go to Pittsburgh. And it's the Texans have a very similar schedule. On the 25th, they play the Ravens. On the 21st, they play the Chiefs. And then on the 15th, they play the Miami Dolphins. So both of these teams, play 3 games in a 10-day span, ending it off on Christmas. So again, the Chiefs have that tough schedule there. But, the Chiefs are the Chiefs, so they're gonna figure it out. They're definitely gonna figure it out. They also have like the crazy games. They have the Wednesday, they have a Friday. The NFL is taking over all 7 days of the week, and the Chiefs are going to be part of that.
Yeah, definitely a very tough start to the season, week 1 through 5. But then for the rest of the season, it's like they have a hard game and then then they get an easy game. So I mean, even if Kansas City starts slow like they did last year and they're 2-3, expect them to get it rolling later in the season. They play the 49ers, but then they play the Raiders.
Yeah.
They play Buffalo, but then they play Carolina. They
Mm-hmm.
play Cleveland, Houston. Those are back-to-back tough ones, but I mean, the Chiefs are the Chiefs. I mean,
Yeah.
this is how their schedule should look.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, reigning champions, right? You'd hope so.
And they're
You're
trying
gonna
to
have
three-peat. No one
they're
has ever three-peated in the NFL. So they're gonna want
yeah.
this one really bad.
Yeah. And I mean, what better storyline, right? Like than the reigning champions on Christmas Day and all these primetime games too for the Chiefs. Because if there's one thing I've learned about the NFL and how when the schedule comes out and all that, like this is why the NFL is king, because the NFL does a very, very good job at making sure its stars, its good teams like are in the spotlight throughout the season. This is why the NFL is king. This is why the NBA is probably second place in that. But then you look at like the MLB and why they're so bad at it, because they do not do what the NFL does. And they're open about it. They're like, hey, we know Aaron Rodgers, for example, this season, we're going to start him on Monday Night Football because of last year, what happened. We missed out on an entire Jets season of Aaron Rodgers. So, that's exactly what they do. And this is why the NFL is the best, man. So just want to throw that little spiel in there for the NFL.
And moving on to the Chargers, now they got Harbaugh over there, and people go back and forth on, how good they expect the Harbaugh era to kick off. And I think this schedule is pretty favorable. They got the Raiders, the Panthers, and the Steelers. I think if they're playing good football, they have a chance to beat all those teams. But then week 4, there's kind of their first test against the Chiefs before a bye week. And then coming out of the bye week, they play Denver. But when I look at the Chargers and Harbaugh, I think it's going to work, and I hate to say that. I think they have a Thanksgiving game as well. Maybe. Oh, no. The Harbaugh game against Baltimore.
Yeah.
So that's going to be on Monday Night Football. So I'm super stoked for that game. They have J.K. Dobbins. They have Gus Edwards now. The Chargers open and close the season against the Raiders, which is probably I would say the worst team in the division. So, I mean, there's plenty of games on the schedule where they look winnable on paper, but we just don't know how good the Chargers are going to be right away. They do have a Week 17 trip to Foxborough on a Saturday game. And they're going to have to be road warriors early in the season. A lot of road games kind of early in the year. They open up at home, but then they're on the road twice. And then they get a home game, but then they're on the road twice again after the bye week.
Jesus Christ.
So, yeah, they have, let's see, that would be 2 home games in the first 7 weeks. If you take the bye week out, 2 of 6 are at home. So, yeah, they're going to be traveling. But you know what? It really works out for the Chargers, because if you have a team in California, would you rather play your road games in December and November, or would you rather be at home playing in your own stadium in November and December?
That's true.
And especially like if you had to do all these road games, you would want them to be against the Cardinals, the Broncos, the Panthers. So in one way, I could see how people would be upset, like if you're a Chargers fan, that, wow, we're on the road so much. But I think it's actually in the best interest of the Chargers if you look a little deeper.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Because, you get the nice California weather. You're not the Dolphins where you go to a cold city and you absolutely collapse.
Right.
But yeah, you mentioned the Ravens game though, too. And not only that Week 12 game against, his brother, he's, that game is sandwiched in between the Bengals and the Chiefs. All of those teams have made the AFC title game. 2 of those have made the Super Bowl in the last 3-4 seasons or so. So that's going to be a tough stretch, starting Week 11. But again, they get to close the season with 3 straight games against teams that all finished under 500. So, if the Chargers do somehow find themselves in playoff contention that late in the season, that's nice. I mean, you got to get through that gauntlet of the Ravens, the Chiefs, and the Bengals, to start the latter half of the season. But it's not the worst to end with, some non-playoff teams from last year. And hopefully, again, they invested in God, why can't I think of the name right now? The quarterback. We don't do names here.
Justin Herbert.
We don't do names on the Only Football podcast. They invested in him. They got JC Latham, if I'm not mistaken, right? They got JC Latham. Yeah, and
wait,
obviously
was it JC Latham?
Yes, because Joe Alt
Fautanu or something.
Was it Fautanu? I thought it was Latham.
The Chargers drafted Joe Alt. That's
they drafted Joe Alt. So the Titans got Latham.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. So everything I said about the Titans earlier, I said Joe Alt, and I think that's just my mock draft brain.
Yeah,
that's my mock draft brain. But they invested in protecting Herbert. They shipped out pretty much all their wide receivers, right? They still have Quentin Johnson, who they hope can be someone they can rely on for Justin Herbert. So while they got rid of some wide receivers, they still invested in Herbert. So, hopefully they can be in that contention, later in the season.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm really excited because when I get my strength of schedule, I've been working
Mhm.
on that for uh, probably a month now.
I
So
love it.
when I release that, we'll be able to go through and I'll explain like how I created it, and then we'll look at and mine is going to include factors like road games,
Mhm.
teams you're playing coming off a bye, right? Like if you're, let's say you're Tennessee and you're playing Houston week 8, but you see week 7 Houston has a bye, so they're going to
Yeah.
be really healthy for that game. It's going
Yes.
to take all that into the equation, and also travel time.
Mhm.
And also the way I did it last year was instead of doing flight time, I do it based on time zones that are jumped, because
Oh, I
I
like
think
that.
that's the real issue. Um,
Kyle and
yeah,
I know that very well. We know that very well.
exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, dude, I'm so when the NFL does this, I'm like super excited, but then I'm like, oh my god, but now I have to wait, May, June, July, August, September.
Yeah.
What are we gonna do? You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
But yeah, dude, the it's just life is better when football's on, and
Life is better when football's on.
so
Um,
I'm super stoked. And I was just gonna say, out of the AFC, which week 1 game are you most excited about? Is it the Chiefs and Ravens, the
let's
49ers
see.
and Jets? Maybe it could be the Colts and Houston, or the Jags and Dolphins.
Mm, if I'm being honest, I mean, to kick off the season with the Ravens and Chiefs, I think that's like a cop out, right? Like to say that's going to be the best game in week 1. But I also think it's true because I'm kind of looking at some other ones here. Maybe the Texans and Colts, like you said, because that's a divisional matchup, right? And those are always so fun. And
Yeah,
especially with CJ Stroud, Anthony Richardson coming back from injury, we get to finally see, those two kind of play against each other. That one is probably up there as well. I like the Florida teams going up against each other, the Jaguars and the Dolphins. I would say
it's
those
gonna
three
be
teams
fun.
right there are good.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a really fun one. Of course, I'm Broncos, but I just think Broncos Seahawks has a ring to it, even with Russ not being
Yes.
on the team anymore.
Yeah.
Um, we had to go to Seattle last time. I really wish they could come to us now. I don't
Mhm.
understand why we have to do that twice. But it is what it is. Denver's going
Yeah.
to go to Seattle and try to upset. Though they're not going to be favored to win. They'll probably be, what, 4-point underdogs, probably, if I had to guess. And
The Broncos?
yeah, going into
Mhm.
Seattle.
Yeah.
But that's gonna be Bo Nix's first experience, in that stadium
Yeah.
with that kind of
Yeah.
noise,
Yeah.
like, what the
The fun 12, 12. Yeah.
right. So
Yeah.
it's gonna be a lot of fun to watch. But of course, the Ravens Chiefs, that the NFL got it right. I said
They
when I
did.
was interviewing the Ravens fan, I'm like, this is definitely week 1, no doubt about it. And
Mhm.
then I gotta say though, the game I'm most excited about is the Jets and the 49ers. I am so
Yeah.
excited for that game. Like
Mhm.
all of, just everything that happened last year, Aaron Rodgers going,
Yep.
like it's just so exciting. I mean, and it's on Monday Night Football. It's just going to be so much fun to watch. Like I'm so excited for that game.
One that I think is flying under the radar, unless you're a Rams or Lions fans, is the Rams going to Detroit on Sunday Night Football, week 1. I feel
Oh, I
like that
wasn't
one is.
including NFC.
Oh, okay, okay, okay. Yeah, so I guess that one is flying a little bit under the radar. But in terms of AFC, those are the ones I like. And
Well,
really, that's kind of it.
I guess you are doing NFC because the Jets are playing an NFC team. The Broncos are playing an NFC team. So
True, true.
I guess it's, I guess if everything's on the table, then you're absolutely right. Like the
Hmm.
Rams in Detroit, I'm super stoked about that game. I
Hmm.
mean, you get a playoff rematch, and I thought there was a stretch there where the Lions play. Yeah, it's the Lions. So they play the Rams, but then they play Tampa. So they play the
Ooh,
divisional, or they play the wild card team and the divisional team that they beat last year. So Detroit has a really sneaky, fun, awesome start to the season with one of those games, the Rams being on Sunday Night Football.
Yeah. And also, real quick, because we did forget one team, I didn't even notice this, the Raiders. So we got to go over there.
No, that wasn't an accident.
Kyle's like, of course it wasn't an accident. We were going to keep rolling. Let's talk a little bit about the Raiders. The Raiders, they've got Gardner Minshew. They've got Aiden O'Connell. They got two pretty solid tight ends after taking Brock Bowers in the draft and already having Michael Mayer from last year. They have Devontae Adams. They did lose Josh Jacobs. But, they're hoping that their offense kind of comes alive now with who's their head coach? Who is their head coach?
Motherfucking
Pierce, Antonio Pierce. Yeah, they want to build off that hype, that they got towards the end of the season, and hopefully they do. But one of the bad things for the Raiders starting in week 6, pretty early on in the season, they play the Steelers, the Rams, the Chiefs, the Bengals, and Dolphins. 5
and they have an even tougher opponent the week before that.
Who's that?
The Broncos.
I love it.
In Denver.
It's a division opponent. That's what we keep saying, baby boy. That's what we keep fucking saying. So in Denver, yeah, even that one, still a tough game. And you add in all those other 5 games, and it becomes a tough early part of your schedule to kind of get over the hump. And if by that point, I mean, if you're the Raiders, you're wondering what your offense is going to look like. And if by that point you are still in some sort of disarray with maybe Minshew isn't playing well, maybe Aiden O'Connell is also not playing well, Devontae Adams is unhappy, the Brock Bowers, Michael Mayers situation isn't working as well. I mean, you've got bigger issues at that point other than the games you're playing. So they're hoping that by week 6, all of that is kind of figured out for them. And, they can kind of go into those games prepared to get punched in the mouth pretty much.
And before they play Denver, they play the Browns with a healthy Deshaun Watson. I mean,
shit.
I think that stretch is absolutely insane. You go Browns at Denver, Steelers, Rams, Chiefs, Bengals, then a bye week, but then the Dolphins out of the bye week, then Denver again, and then the Chiefs.
Jesus Christ, it gets even worse.
Yeah, and then Tampa Bay, who I think is going to be a good team. Atlanta, who I think is going to be good with Kirk Cousins. Then the Jags. So really, which games are you got? New Orleans week 17, and that might not seem like a big deal. Like, oh, finally a cookie cutter game. Then no. This game is going to have a special meaning for Derek Carr. Like Derek Carr is going to be facing his former team, of course. The head coach and the GM that ran him out are no longer going to be there. But it's not like Derek Carr is going to forget. That game's going to mean a lot to him. So you're going to get the Saints, the best shot. And then the Chargers to close it. I mean, really, they have one game that you're like, that's easy. It's the Panthers week 3. The rest of their
Let's go.
Be brutal.
Let's go, Raider Nation. Let's go. You guys better hope you got some shit figured out.
I hope it goes so bad. I love Antonio Pierce. I hope that they're so coached. I hope they're coached so well that Antonio Pierce is not the problem. I hope the problem's somewhere else.
Real quick. No, go ahead. And I'll ask the question later.
Oh, no, that's all I was saying. I do like Antonio Pierce. I really do. And I think he deserves to be the head coach. But it's a weird place for me to be because it's like I hope the Raiders also suck.
Yeah, no, I get you. I'm totally there with you because I was going to ask if that does seem to be the case and the Raiders are just not making any progress in terms of wins or maybe their offense is stalled. Do you think Antonio Pierce finishes the year, or is this another one of those like owner mid-season firings or something like that?
I think even if it's going tough for the Raiders, they're going to stick with Antonio Pierce. The Raiders are an organization that tends to stick with a coach. And the reason Josh McDaniels was gone is because he lost the locker room. The Raiders are going to lose games, sure, but they're not going to lose the locker room because Antonio Pierce is going to be somebody that these players are going to play for. And I expect Al Davis to um, double down on this decision. And honestly, until you have a better option than Gardner Minshew, nothing wrong with Gardner Minshew, but I think the Raiders are due for a tough season. I think the Vikings might be the worst team in the NFL
Oh,
next
wow,
year.
really?
Yeah, and I was thinking, every year there's teams where you look at the over/under, and even the worst teams are at like 5 or 4.5.
Mhm.
But every year there's a team that won 2 or 3. So nobody can ever predict which team is going to just bottom out like that. But when you
Yeah.
look at the Vikings schedule, with JJ McCarthy, and we'll talk about NFC another moment, but
Mhm.
this Minnesota team is, I mean, they be prepared for a lot of losing.
Yeah.
And the Raiders,
Yeah.
I feel the same way. So with the Raiders, I do think they're going to go into another year, but with the top draft pick, it might be Shedeur Sanders,
Oh,
getting
yeah.
drafted by the Raiders next year. But they're probably going to have their, a top 5 pick if I had to guess.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Because then at that point, I mean, you're kind of hoping that I wonder if the Raiders kind of did this all along. Hey, let's take a tight end. We know we're going to probably be last in the division and have a good draft pick going into the next draft. Get it on a quarterback. All of a sudden, you got a rookie quarterback with 2 established tight ends. Hopefully, Devontae Adams there.
Right.
And depending how his production is either continued to be productive or if it's dipped a bit, then you bring in a quarterback, and it's almost similar to what the Bears did with Caleb Williams, where we brought in DJ Moore, we got him in here for a year. He's already 1,000-yard receiver. We're bringing in Keenan Allen. And now we're bringing in a quarterback with a situation like that, with an improved offensive line, this and that. So I wonder if maybe that was their plan all along, and Antonio Pierce may be an integral part of that too, depending how the
Exactly.
year goes.
I think so.
Like
And I think it's similar to what Tampa did last year, but Baker Mayfield just outperformed the expectations and ended up with a long-term
yes,
contract. So,
yes,
and Tennessee's doing the same thing. Like,
mm-hmm.
we're going with Will Levis. He's our guy.
Yeah,
You look at the pieces that they drafted, and Tennessee is another team that might be loading up for next year's draft. I would say
yeah,
the Titans and the Raiders are the 2 teams that are going to be looking for a quarterback next year. Maybe the Giants, but all these other teams, like, I mean, I would think if you just drafted a quarterback, they definitely are going to have more than 1 year. Like, how bad
yeah,
would Jaden Daniels have to be for them to move? How bad would Caleb
yeah,
Williams have to be
yeah,
so I don't see that type of scenario taking place, and I think that's why when the Giants were on the clock, they took Malik Neighbors and not JJ McCarthy.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
A lot of like chess moves being done by teams.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, this is all chess, and the fans never want to know this side of the 2-year, 3-year plan. They
Mhm.
just don't. They want to believe that they're all in for this year every year, but we know that's not how it goes. It's a business
Yeah.
at the end of the day, and um, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. Like, of course, you still try to win, but you just keep in mind, like, if it doesn't work, will I'm not saying tanking, but just like not putting. Well, also, it's not that they're not putting a quarterback there on purpose. Like, there's no one available.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
yeah, so it's not tanking. It's just, hey, let's hope for the best and be prepared for the worst, and that means drafting a quarterback high in 2025.
And it's more or less a let's be real with our situation. We're in the same division as the Kansas City Chiefs. We're in the same division as Sean Payton and Jim Harbaugh. We've got a coach who was an interim last year who, yes, did those things with the locker room and made it an actual like nice place to be at work. But we're going to get Gardner Minshew. We're going to have Aiden O'Connell. And, let's be real with where we're at. We're not a Super Bowl contender. We're going to be there hopefully one day soon, but this year is not it. So you guys got to deal with it, because I know that very well. And I'm sure you know that too, about building up to that status. And you're going to have some down years, and the Raiders are in a down year, and that's how it's going to go. And I want to move on because we were just going to do AFC schedule talk today. We're going to do the NFC hopefully on Monday.
Yeah.
But I did want to talk about one thing that I feel like a lot of us struggle through, and a lot of NFL fans are going to struggle through, is all the places to watch games this season, because we've got games on Peacock, which there was a game last year on Peacock. You're going to have your regular channels, Fox, CBS, ESPN, ABC. Obviously, Amazon Prime has got the Thursday Night Football, but now you have to have Netflix. You have to have ESPN Plus. The NFL is like just selling games to every streaming service, it seems like. And it does suck because before you would just need a basic cable and you'd have CBS, Fox, NBC, and you'd have every single football game. Now with the streaming wars going on and everything, you got to get Netflix, you got to have Peacock, you got to have ESPN Plus.
Paramount.
I don't know,
Plus.
Kyle. Yeah, Paramount Plus. Like it sucks, but regardless, we're probably gonna watch those games regardless, right?
Yeah, I'll definitely be illegally streaming them. I think when I see this, it's like, okay, it's one thing for Amazon to, buy the $100 million or whatever they paid for Thursday Night Football. Okay,
Yeah.
now everybody knows Amazon is where we watch Thursday Night Football. That's fine. Netflix, I'll give a pass to because everyone has Netflix pretty much, right? But like you said, once you start getting into the Paramount Pluses and the Peacocks, it's like, it really does feel like the NFL's biting the hand that feeds them. It's like you're already a multi-billion-dollar industry, and you know that your fans don't necessarily have a ton of money. Like, we're the kind of fans that will spend our whole paycheck just on going to a game in real life and having those moments. And it's like, it would be nice once in a while for the NFL to not make every decision based off money and to throw a bone back to us. It makes me really upset. Like I said, Netflix and Amazon, okay, fine. But, making people download shit that they don't want just to watch a game that they should already be entitled to. It blows my mind. It really does. I shouldn't be so mind blown about it because it's like, we know that this is how the NFL operates, but it is just a little disappointing.
And like you said, it sucks because, not to get too political, but some people just, their jobs just do not allow them to have, the ability to get a Peacock or a Paramount Plus or really even a Netflix account, right? Like Amazon Prime too, like throw that in there.
Yeah.
We just want to watch football. We want to be able to root for our teams. And when it's on a streaming service that we don't have or costs a ridiculous amount or only lets you watch half the game on a free trial.
What if you're at a hotel?
What if you're at a hotel, right? Like those little things, like, again, I wish the NFL wouldn't make these decisions just based off, okay, how much revenue can we get, right? Because really, it's a win-win for both the NFL and Peacock, for example, because Peacock gets people to sign up, and most of those people, I mean, it's a pretty big number, I would assume, forget to deactivate their account. Let's be real, right? Like you pay for it the first month,
100%.
or you get that free trial for those 7 days or whatever, and then the next month you're like, why did Peacock take $4.99 away from me? It's like, oh fuck, and they get their money that way. And it's going to open. Yeah, it sucks, but because it's going to open a door to now Netflix, I think, has Christmas games for the next 3 years. Now Peacock and Paramount have exclusive rights to at least one Monday Night Football or Thursday Night Football game, or probably Sunday Night Football. You know what I mean? So like, you get benefits from having a Peacock and a Paramount, more shows or whatever, but for one fucking game a year, like that's dog shit.
Yeah, I have family members in Wisconsin that use an antenna. You know what I mean? Like it used to be that if you didn't have money for cable, you just go to Walmart, buy a good antenna, screw it into the back, get it just right. I grew up watching football games like that. I had a tiny TV, I had an antenna on top of it, and I remember, I mean, we had a nicer TV in the living room, but in my bedroom when I was supposed to be sleeping, I was messing with the antenna trying to watch Broncos 49ers on preseason, and it's just sad that, for people that really honestly can't afford to have all these streaming services, even people that don't have like a debit card, like people forget that there are people out there that work for cash, that don't have credit cards and debit cards, and they can't set up a profile. And yeah, it's just a money grab, and it's sad to see because the NFL is plenty lucrative. There's absolutely no reason for them to. I mean, why are they lucrative, right? It's because of us.
Exactly.
So yeah, it's just they done fucked up.
and it sucks because look, there are some people like one of my coworkers who's like, yeah, that game's streaming on this service and I'm not paying for it.
Oh shit.
And then
thanks, Bill.
Bill's paying for ours. So we've got some people that do that, and then you got people like me that are like, yeah, I'll create an email for a free trial, or yeah, I'll pay the $5 for the first month, something like that. And the NFL knows it. They've got an absolute hold on us on football.
They do, because we can't not.
We can't not watch the game. We can't not. And thanks to people like Bill paying for our streaming service, we appreciate it. The Caitlin Clark.
20 points in her debut. I watched the whole game.
I love it. The Indiana Fever have got a great special player there.
Going to a game.
What's that?
Me and my family, we're gonna go up for in Indianapolis. It was actually, I was looking into it. I'm like, where do they play? Right next to Lucas Oil Stadium is where they play. So we're gonna go up there, I think, in December, and the tickets were like $20.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. So I've tried to get them early before, because they're obviously gonna go up, especially as Caitlin Clark is balling out, and maybe the record is better. But I do have some. Did you say we are going to do this on Monday? We're going to do the NFC on Monday. I had something come up, so I can't do the whole thing tonight. There were some interviews probably coming your guys' way, so keep in mind. I did do a Broncos interview earlier today with a Broncos fan from Texas, so check that out.
Shit. It's time, Kyle, for
still alive. Didn't know what it took to do the chives. Play it every day like it's do or die. Always looking down, don't check the sky. This is what we do when we don't know why. Me and Rick been battling since 1999. I don't know.
Oh, I was born in 91.
I know, I was 94. It wouldn't have rhymed.
Wait, Kyle, who was at the Garden today? Who was that?
The Dable.
I got you, Bill. I got you.
I said it right the other day, and Bill was like, "Holy shit! Congratulations, man! You did it."
Like Helen Keller learning to read. Wow, good for you. All right, Kyle, what chimes you got for us today?
All right, so I wanted to give you guys a couple key dates that are coming up for the NFL as we get closer to the beginning of the season. So July 17th is the Bill KC. Let's go, baby. Thank you guys.
Thank you guys.
Late May to early June, OTAs and mandatory mini camps. July 17th, franchise tag deadline. Mid to late July, training camp opens. Preseason starts in August. November 5th is the trade deadline. And, of course, February 9th is going to be the Super Bowl in New Orleans this year. I love when the Super Bowl is in New Orleans. I think last time it was the Bears and Colts played, if I'm not mistaken.
No, that was Miami. The last time it was in New Orleans... I'm going to look it up while you go ahead.
Yeah, but those are just a couple things that I was looking at, because time's gonna fly by, and it'll be here before we know it. But I was gonna say, for my chives, Tom Brady, of course, the best roast I've ever seen happened on Netflix, and it was Tom Brady's roast. It was very, very. It reminded me of kind of an old school roasting. Like,
Yeah,
it's
that was good.
it was it was exactly what a roast is. Tom Brady did come out and say he wouldn't do it again. It wasn't good
Yeah.
for his kids. And honestly, like I was wincing the whole time. Like
Mhm.
I wouldn't be able to do that. I also some people find that like the offensive, vulgar comedy, that's just more their thing. Like for me, I
Mhm.
normally get socially awkward even if I'm by myself watching it. I'm just kind of like,
Mhm.
oh, I don't like that.
Yeah.
But like you can't stop watching at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, but yeah, I was gonna say Tom Brady is announcing the Cowboys Browns game. It's gonna be his first game announcing
Yep.
after signing a multi-$100 million deal with Fox, I believe. Week
Mhm.
2, Seahawks and Patriots. Week 3, Ravens Cowboys. Week 4, Pats 49ers. Week 5, Dolphins Pats. These are all games that are likely to be broadcasted by Tom Brady. Week 6, Lions and Cowboys. Week 7, Chiefs 49ers, no brainer.
Mhm.
Week 8, there's no obvious game. The choices were Titans, Lions, Packers, Jags, Cardinals, Dolphins, Falcons, Bucks, Saints, Chargers, Bills, Seahawks. Who knows? He might even
Mhm.
get a week off here. Week 9, the Lions and Packers. It could change the Rams Seahawks if that's a bigger game after 8 weeks. Week 10, 49ers, Bucks. Patriots, Bears is also a possibility. Rams,
So,
Patriots, week 11. Niners, Packers, week 12. The Giants and the Cowboys on Thanksgiving, possibly getting Sunday off for calling Thanksgiving. Week 14, Bills and Rams. Week 15, Steelers at Eagles. Week 16, Steelers at Ravens. Um,
mhm.
and then week 17, Cowboys at Eagles. And then everything's TBD, dates, times, and networks on week 18. So
Yeah.
those are the most likely Tom Brady games to be announced. And I guess my chives are giving you that information and then just closing with, how do you think Tom Brady's going to do in the booth?
I think he'll do fine. We've seen a lot of first year guys come into the booth, like Greg Olson, even Tony Romo, right, to an extent, do really well their first year. And you know, in as far as like Tony Romo and Greg Olson, although Tony Romo fell off a bit, they continue to be pretty damn good in the booth. So these former players doing this, um, it's awesome. While they don't have necessarily the voice that like a boomer has, or like some of these guys that have been doing this for so long, I think they're going to be. I think they're going to be good. I think they're going to be very knowledgeable. And Greg Olson and Tony Romo have both shown that, and they've almost predicted plays right before they happen. So I think really former players doing this is a really good gig, first of all, and it's very, I guess, educational too for the fans.
Yeah, I think he's going to be, I think he's going to hit it off and it's going to be awesome. I think for the fans, though, it might take a little bit getting used to it just because Tom Brady is such a big figure. Um,
Yes.
this
Yeah.
is not like, Tony Romo. Like he just came in and it was like we all just accepted it. It's
Yeah.
Tom Brady,
Mhm.
so it might take a little bit getting used to on our end. But I expect him to be just as good as if Peyton Manning were to jump in the booth. I think Manning would be a really good announcer if he wanted to do that. Just based on what they know, they're going to be, he's going to be fine. We're going to have to get used to it. That's what I think.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. Um, and real quick, the last Super Bowl that was played in New Orleans was the Harbaugh Super Bowl at February 3rd, 2013, when the lights went out for 34 minutes. The Niners put up 17 unanswered points, but
All of the
still
lights.
fell to the Baltimore Ravens. All of the lights. Do, 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 do.
Yeah,
But
Tom
yes,
Brady's been to 10 Super Bowls. He's going to be fine.
he'll be good. I think he'll be fine. Real quick, yes, we only did the AFC schedule today, but we will be back again on Monday to do the NFC schedule. Talk about that. Talk about my Bears. Talk about all the NFC teams as well. So sorry we didn't specify that at the beginning. Bill's like, I got fucking robbed. What? No. But thank you guys so much for being here, Casey and Bill. Both of them paying for our streaming service this season. We fucking love you guys. Thank you so much. The Caitlin Clark heart for both of you guys. Thank you guys so much. And of course,
I thought that was the Damar Hamlin heart. Remember?
Is it the DeMar? No, it's Caitlin
No,
Clark. Caitlin Clark does
remember last year when there was a Travis Kelce scored and went like this, and Damar Hamlin fans were like, "That's fucked up. That was what Damar Hamlin did after his injury."
Thing?
Dude, we talked about it. It was a whole thing. Travis Kelce scored and went like this, and they were like, "That's fucked up," because when Damar Hamlin went to that Bills postseason game, they looked at him in the box and he did that.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Now I do remember. I think he was just doing it for Taylor Swift, right? I'm pretty sure that was the whole thing.
Yeah, he totally was. It's just funny. It's like you say the Caitlin Clark, Damar Hamlin. No one owns it.
Nobody owns this.
Nobody owns this. We do. It's our hands.
Kyle, you son of a bitch. That's a Damar Hamlin heart. How dare you? You're fired. But yes,
you guys can follow me on X at NFL with Kyle. Rick always does it first. I'm trying to throw him off his game today, like I did with I'm Rick, that's Kyle. But Rick, where can they find you?
They can find me at and now Rick on X, on the X, and you can find me on YouTube at Yo I'm Rick if you want to subscribe. I don't have anything up, but I will eventually. Kyle, what about you? Where can they find you on your own YouTube channel?
Oh, I'm glad you asked. You can actually find me right here at did that work? Oh, no, kind of. It did. It was cool. Yeah, I'll run it back and check it out. But you can follow me at Kyle Kitzman. A lot of interviews. I put out a Reddit thread about doing interviews, and I got like 20 Bronco fans that are going to do it. So I kind of am creating a community of Bronco fans, and I'm just going to interview all of them. So it should be a lot of fun. Those are going to be coming your way. So check it out.
Go check it out, guys. And of course, follow us if you are not already here on YouTube at Only Football Pod. Make sure to hit that like button. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. We do have super chats now, so you guys are just helping us. If you do get a super chat out, sorry for those burps. I'm old. I got to talk through them. But thank you for those super chats. Everyone who gives it to us. Casey and Bill, today, you guys are awesome. Thanks for paying for our Peacock Plus this season for those games. And again, like the video on YouTube, on Twitch, on X, Twitter. And yeah, we're going to come back on Monday and talk NFC schedule. And most importantly, my Bears schedule.
Yes.
But yeah.
You're going to have to bear with us.
You'll have to bear with us, if you will.
Bear down.
Bear down. Oh, no. What does Caleb Williams say? Duh, Bears.
Does he?
He does. After every media session, he's always like, duh, Bears.
That's hilarious. I can't believe he picked 18. I wasn't a fan of it, but I don't know why. I was like, what? 18? I got used to him in 13.
Same. It does look a little weird, but we'll get used to it. We'll get used to it.
Yeah. Keenan Allen is like, I'm 13.
Yeah. He's like, I'm a Hall of Famer, Dick. What?
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Thank you guys again for joining us, and we will be back on Monday. Kyle, always a good time, brother.
Always a good time.
So